Hi guys, and welcome back to the channel. So today we're going to be doing the first part of the shootout, and what we're going to do is we're going to run the low ESR capacitors, LC filters, and the anti-interference boards up against each other. However, what we're going to do this time is we're going to completely change the setup to the noisiest setup I could possibly get to generate noise. Alright, so what we're going to be testing today is we're going to be testing the 1000 microfarad Panasonic low ESR capacitor versus the Rubycon 470 microfarad low ESR capacitor against the 470 anti-interference board against each other. Now they will all be connected to the battery rails, the battery terminal right into it in this part of the shootout. And you might say, well, you've already tested the 470s. Yes, I have, but that was a very clean quad. The difference is spectacular on a very noisy quad. There is a huge difference in the results, and it's pretty interesting. So what we're going to be using is we're going to be using the Matek F405 flight controller. I choose this flight controller because it does not have a voltage regulator for the VTX, thus giving us a clear visual representation of what's going on in the FPV video feed while the noise is being generated. For ESCs, I replaced them from the Flycolor budget ESCs, they were the best ESCs ever, into the Solo Good ESCs. I'll leave a link to everything down below if you want to check out the current setup and everything, where to get everything that I'm using here. And for motors, we're going to be sticking with the Emax 2306 2400 kV because I find them to generate the most amount of noise and being very harsh on ESCs, thus giving us a great platform to test on. So, while we're doing all this, we're going to be recording the FPV video feed and listening in with the oscilloscope on the noise being generated throughout the system and seeing the difference. So, enough talking, and let's just jump to it. Alright guys, so the results are in here. So let's go ahead and check this out. So this was the Solo Good ESC without anything, with the anti-interference board up on the top right. On the bottom left is the 470 microfarad low ESR capacitor, and on the bottom right is the 1000 microfarad Panasonic low ESR capacitor. Now immediately you can tell that there's a difference in each and every one of them. I mean, there's a huge difference. So let's take a look here. So as you can tell, this is a very high frequency noise. That's why you see so many lines going up and down. And this is not good at all. So that's something to take note of. For example, let's bring in the Flycolor just to see what kind of a difference it really was. So here it is. Let's take a look here. So this is the Flycolor without anything, just like the Solo Good, the same setup, same motors, same everything, and you could tell the difference here. This is spectacular. That's why I keep telling you the Flycolor, that budget ESC is just insane. I mean, it's just as good as it with the anti-interference board, if not a little bit better, because of this high frequency noise right there. Here you don't see that much of a high frequency noise, but you still obviously do see noise, and you'll see noise in every single one of them. So let's remove this. So here with the anti-interference board, as you could tell, there was a significant decrease of noise here. So that board is not useless. The only reason we thought it could be useless with the Flycolor is because the Flycolor was already a good ESC, and the anti-interference board could only do so much. Here you could actually see its full potential of the anti-interference board. It's good, It's better than nothing, that's for sure right there. It does help quite a bit. As you can tell here, we had a voltage spike with nothing, a 23.4 volts. Here we had a 21 volt voltage spike, and the voltage drop was 10 volts, and then here was 9.2 volts. So yeah, it's right now we really can't look at the voltage drops here just yet, because these ESCs kind of had weird jitters every once in a while. This is the best overall average I've gotten. Now let's take a look at the 470 microfarad low ESR capacitor. Now it's a night and day difference, as you can tell, from without anything to just one on the battery terminals. So it does help quite a lot. So the voltage spike was 23.4 volts. Here was 18.8 volts. So even when, you know, the motors needed extra power, it was able to supply the motors. That's why the minimum voltage drop was 12.2 compared to 10 volts here. So it had a little extra juice to give it from the capacitor, so it does not suck that battery dry completely, because there's barely, the filtration is terrible on these ESCs. Now, if we take a look at the 1000 microfarad low ESR capacitor, it does slightly better than the 470 microfarad low ESR capacitor. But, you know, overall, if you could fit a 470, go ahead and stick a 470 on your quadcopter, because it does make a huge difference. Even, you know, one 470. With the 1000, just a little bit better, but not so much better. I mean, if you want to count in the weight, the size, the amount of room you have inside, that comes back to you at the current moment of time. So this is how these look like. Let's go ahead and take a look at the color graph. It's the same exact results, but just colors, so you can kind of get a visual representation of what's really going on here, where with the voltage most of the time and all that kind of stuff. So let's take a look here, and let's take a look here. So as you can tell, there's that high frequency noise right there, and the anti-interference board really helped out a lot, really helped out quite a bit. It just removed most of these here, and it kept the general noise, and even decreased it quite a bit more than it would actually have it as default without anything. So that's very nice to see. And there's the low ESR capacitors. They're just doing absolutely insanely good. So now let's go to the noise. So this is the simulated aggressive flight maneuvers. So let's go ahead and take a look at this. So here's the solo good. This is the noise. This is huge noise. This is very bad noise. And if we take a look at the anti-interference board noise, it's right there. So it does help. It is helping quite a bit. It's obviously, you could totally see that it does help. And let's see the low ESR capacitor. So let's go ahead and take a look at the 470. That is a huge difference. I mean, it's insane the amount of difference a low ESR capacitor can do on these boards. I'll also be adding regular capacitors into these testing, just to get an idea of what's the difference between a low ESR capacitor and a regular capacitor also in the shootout. So that'll be in the upcoming parts of this video, and once obviously we finish the series, we'll go back over everything. So there's a huge night and day difference. The 470 performs better than the anti-interference board, like expected, but you know, if all you had is anti-interference board, it's still very good. I mean, look at the difference here. It's spectacular. Let's just bring in the color coded version here so we can get an idea, which is a little bit better here, so we can get a better visual representation, because the color, I find the color work best with the aggressive flight maneuver noise test here. So here's the anti-board, and here is the noise right there. So as you can tell here, it's, you know, the 470, the 1000 microfarad low ESR capacitor are doing absolutely phenomenal here. Very good to see. I really like this. The 1000 microfarad low ESR capacitor could hold a bit more charge, and that's why you could kind of see here on voltage spike with the 470 microfarad, it was 22.2 volts, so that's a big voltage spike. But here it was 21 volts, so that's very good. It's about a 1.2 volt of a difference right there. It's not really huge, but it does help that little extra bit, and it's very nice to see. So yeah, overall, the low ESR capacitors are the current winners in this noise testing against the anti-interference board. We were actually supposed to be comparing the 470 anti-interference board with this guy, and it is making a difference. It is making a big difference, especially on very noisy setups. However, if the noise was very minimal, a low ESR capacitor will outdo the anti-interference board, because it just has a specific limit basically of what it could filter out. And as you could tell right there. So overall, in this current setup, you know, the 1000 microfarad low ESR capacitor is the winner, but not by much. The second would be the 470 microfarad Rubycon. I'll leave a link to them down below. The Rubycon is doing an absolutely phenomenal job, to be honest. And in the next video, we're going to be putting them We're going to put in a low ESR capacitor on each ESCs and testing the LC filters and regular capacitors. So that's going to be very interesting, and we'll also probably add a little couple of other things in there just to see how well we could go ahead and filter out most of this noise. So this is pretty fun. This is actually pretty insane. I never expected this is just insane. Look at the amount of difference that really does. That does a huge difference. And you get 10 of these 470 microfarads right now on Banggood for like $2. You get 10 of them, which is like, that's like 10 quads. Look how much you could filter out 10 quads. The anti-interference board is $2 just for one. And I would personally, I'd rather go with the low ESR capacitor. Obviously, you get for $2 the same price, you get 10 of these. So that's just awesome. And plus they're small enough to put on each ESC also. So if you really wanted extra filtration, you could totally do that, because I think there's going to be a certain threshold or a limit that we hit. No matter how many capacitors you put on, it might even start to hinder performance. So I'm going to look into a way to actually even test that as well. But I think there's a specific amount of limit to where it could filter out. Even if you had like 10 capacitors on the quadcopter, there has to be a specific limit. Like it cannot possibly touch some certain frequencies that will just leak through the capacitor. But I could be wrong, and we'll just figure this out as we go along. But overall, it was a great testing result. It's very awesome actually. I'm very surprised, and I'm very pleased with these results. They're just insane here. And yeah, that's gonna conclude it for this video, guys. If you really like this content, please consider joining my Patreon. I do a lot of awesome things, a lot of awesome giveaways and stuff. And you could always use the links down below. They are affiliated links. Those will greatly support the channel. Any support goes an absolute long way for this channel. And yeah, I really hope this is gonna help you make an educated guess. And I will see you next time. See you guys. Take care.